chief guests and other dignitaries will now be arriving. I would like to request all of you to rise for the arrival. Please remain standing for the national anthem of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka Mata, Upper Sri Lanka, Namo, 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 Namo Mata. Sundara Sri Karini, Surani Ati Somamana Ramuha. Jivana Dimini, Nitina Apapura.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please resume your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, to get our ceremony off to a traditional start, may I now welcome the following to light the lamp of learning. The President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, Dr. Satish Gunasinghe, our chief guest tonight, Professor Mohan De Silva, our guest of honor, Dr. Narendra Pinto, our keynote speaker, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, representing the College of Anesthesiologists, Dr. Nilmini Vijayasuriya, the Director of the NTMC, Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, and the Secretary of the College, Dr. Kavinda Rajapaksa. At the head table, the President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, Dr. Satish Gunasinghe, our chief guest, Professor Mohan De Silva, our guest of honor, Dr. Narendra Pinto, our keynote speaker, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, the Director NTMC, Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, and Dr. Kavinda Rajapaksa, Secretary of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to call upon the Director of the National Trauma Management Course of Sri Lanka, Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, to deliver the address of welcome.
Good evening to all of you. It is my responsibility to welcome the gathering today, highlighting the importance of this ceremony, the 50th of National Trauma Management course completed. I would like to declare the National Trauma Management course completed its 50th today, officially. Yes, sir, the President of the College of Surgeons, Dr. Satish K. Gunasinghe, as I know from the beginning of your presidency, the tremendous support you have given to NTMC was appreciable. And I remind you excitingly that first educational event of National Trauma Management course, the first course in 2022 started under your blessing in Kuliapitiya. Dear sir, on behalf of the Faculty of National Trauma Management course, I warmly welcome you to this ceremony. Dear Sir, the Chief Guest, Emeritus Professor Mohan De Silva, the trauma resuscitation, the concept of shock room, and ATLS walk. Dear Sir, I can still remember your teaching and the way that you taught us how to walk towards the patient in ATLS concept and as the ATLS walk, and your style of teaching. Of course, I was your registrar and I was very interesting to listen to you most of the time. I hope you can remember one of your lazy registrar to read. But still, I can remember when you come out from the theatre, usually still you are teaching. And while teaching, you are exiting the door of the changing room. I can remember still, I was tying my bootlace. So I had to buy new pair of shoes to catch you. Not just to catch you, just to listen that bit. Again, just because I was a lazy reader. And of course, that bit is a textbook. So, it's a glamour to this evening, sir. I welcome you as the chief guest to NTMC 50th course Felicitation ceremony today. The guest of honor today. If I remind the past again, I can remember, actually I was a world-class cutter also. So once I cut the class and just vanished, and people said that he got a flash of sunlight through my bald head to his. And suddenly he realized that this man was disappearing, and he marked the register and caught me. I hope that you can remember how I worked very hard to come out of from you and got the signature. My number was 12. So there was a style of giving the number to the patient. So after that day, each ward class, he was very sharp to ask a question on number 12. So I was prepared to answer all of this. So of course, while we are teaching in NTMC, the whole faculty, we were discussing we can make a textbook or storybook from your stories, because all of us are trainees of yours, sir. So it is very excitingly and warmly I welcome to this evening today as the guest of honor. And of course he is one of the 9 core members of NTMC as well. The keynote speaker today, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, the Global Chair of NTMC, one of my mentors of trauma. A long journey has been completed already, but long way to go. Dear sir, as the present director of National Trauma Management course, I am so fortunate to welcome you to this keynote address at the 50th occasion today. I will keep the interesting junctures when I read the citation of him. Welcome you to this event, and the secretary, Dr. Kaminda Rajapaksa, an energetic, updated, technical, capable young man behind me, always helping to organize this event. I welcome you to this event. Members of council, past presidents, and I must mention the names of core group of NTMC when we started that in 2009. Of course, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao and Dr. Narendra Pinto, and Dr. Mahanam Gunasekara, Professor Alok Patirana, Dr. Jagati Pereira, Dr. Mitsaj Premaratna, Dr. Padma Kumar Uddapamura, Dr. Keerthi Abejiva, and Dr. Lanka Singh. It's a special course, the 50th course. Most of these senior first 4 members delivered the lectures today in our course. And especially, I must mention few names before I deliver you the especially why we do this ceremony today. So one is, as I said, I must thank the secretary because he is going to deliver the word of thanks. So no one is there to thank him. And few other names. I have only one daughter, but when I come to the college, I have two more daughters, Amali and Chatu. And Mr. Dayananda, Hirun and the staff of the college. So I warmly welcome all of you to this event, but please listen to few minutes. I am going to highlight few things in NTMC. Yes, we have gone a long way and we have completed the journey. But just listen to this short story. When I was in the consultant lounge, one of my colleagues was saying his father-in-law had a slip and fall and admitted to a primary care unit, A&E, shock room, whatever it is. And he was hypotensive, but suspected head injury. So this patient was sent for CT. And he was saying, most of the time, the doctors wanted to somehow palm off the responsibility. And his multiple refractures and massive hemothorax was detected later. And of course, he was having a pelvic fracture as well. So this is his father-in-law. So there is a long way to go, even we have completed. Just see what we have done as outreach programs. There are few stations I selected just to highlight you what we detected with the journey. Just see in Tricomali, we have done twice. And before we enter this station as NTMC principals, primary care doctors in PCU were house officers. And awaiting for the MO anesthesia, MO surgery for ICU, and of course, long duration waiting for MO radiology to do the scan. So after NTMC concept and after training of them, primary care SHO on-call roster was proposed and started. And with time, we have observed that they maintain their way and sometimes they intubated also. And ICU learned by the primary care doctors. E-fast, we got to separate the scan machine and massive transfusion protocol, transmit acid. So we have changed the system. Anuradhapura, we have done 3 national trauma management courses. Still the same. Most of the time they are just like waiting for the specialty, but that is not the primary care. So national trauma management course, and we have changed the habit, we have changed the system with positive thinking, training of the MOs, training of the nurses. Now, recently I checked and we got the feedback from the consultants. There are members of the faculty as well. So they maintain their way now. And of course, they learn how to do ICT. So Dabulla was one of my places. And there was a significant system error. Mean delay from admission to resuscitation room was 12 minutes. We calculated that. Patient was waiting in a place which was called, it was the ETU, but there was nothing. And there was a trauma resuscitation room in the surgical building. So these patients were waiting for 12 minutes to come to the resuscitation. So we had started after NTMC concepts and training them, direct admission to the room and minimize the delay. So with maintaining of airway, breathing and detecting of the blood with the scan, massive transfusion protocol, transsympathetic, all came to the principles. So recently we have done in Kuliapiti. And still we have our faculty members, same problem. So after the NTMC, we have realized that they were very happily engaging the trauma principles by the primary care doctor. Chilau is yet to start or conduct the NTMC, but there are significant problems. This is the system, so we should not change these things very acutely. It's very difficult. And we are not going to blame anyone. So we have to write the call book for MO regularly. And we have to transfer the patient to the ultrasound scan room. Even though we have a CT, we don't have emergency CT for trauma care. And of course there is a habit of starting inotropes to the hypertensive patient in hypovolemic shock. So we had to change. So we were discussing and change most of these steps that I did. But still, we yet to conduct the NTMC course. But with our discussions, meetings, we could change. Of course, if all these observations, if I put into a graph with hypothetical numerical values, this is the nature. So with the NTMC, the quality of the management of patient in primary care is increased, and with time, with months, it's reducing. Why? Most of the time, transfer of MOs, even though they train with these concepts, and newcomers knowledge gap, administrators. It's very difficult to change the system in our hospitals. But still, if you discuss and if you teach and if you engage in the discussions with the administrators, we could have changed most of the things. And the interest of the doctors and nature of back to the dormant stage is a human nature. So we have observed these things. And of course, if you give the stimulation of NTMC in outreach stations frequently, then we can keep this. So up to now, it's nearly 2,500 doctors trained. But there are many doctors to train. And this concept should spread all over the hospitals. How we can support? The National Trauma Course is updating and updated. And of course, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao became the global chair of NTMC. So YATSIC, this is under the auspices of YATSIC. So YATSIC permitted to edit relevant to the country. So this National Trauma Management course is an international course but national aspect, because we could change to a certain level under their supervision. We made the instructor guide and we have already prepared the standard operation procedure for the outreach courses. And of course, the NTMC faculty didn't forget that this is a teamwork. So we have started ITCN to train the nurses. And our faculty is very strong now, about 58 members. So actually what update? I want to brief this to the audience. This is actually National Trauma Management course is beyond the ATLS concept. Why I so say? Because in 2009 in Poland, EHC business meeting, they were discussing something in between the National Trauma Management course and ESPs. Because definitive surgery in trauma care is a difficult course to bring to Asia. So, NTMC is going towards the DSTC. We are doing the advanced case discussions and we added additional modules. Of course, we are going towards, we have already started and one course has already been done, decision making in major trauma. And we are yet to produce the new manual. So, not the resuscitation of patients. We have to take a decision where the patient should end up. So NTMC is now ahead of ATL concept because we discuss the decision making also to a certain level. And we will go towards the decision making in major trauma. As I said, this is a teamwork. We need the priest, hospital staff, nurses, primary care doctors, trainees, experts to make the decisions, and of course administrators. So we approach as a team to all of areas. I recommend National Trauma Management course to all surgeons and anesthetists to refresh and guide their teams. Many consultants will follow our course, and of course the radiologist, orthopedic surgeons. Is there any way to make compulsory to MO anesthetists, OPD, PCU, ETU, R-room, all the primary care doctors? We will discuss this with the ministry and still in process how to make this compulsory for them. And of course new suggestion to make all the compulsory to all the administrators. I just put this map. This is the CT distribution in the island, the black dot. Now most of the time we have the problem during the weekend and on Fridays we don't have immediate emergency trauma CT available. So we have to transfer these portions sometimes. But without CT most of the surgeons will manage the trauma case. So these are the things that I highlighted and that is I make these few slides as the theme of long way to go. At the juncture of we have completed the long journey. This is how the patient comes from 1990. But this is how the patient comes to the ward. Still this problem is there online if you visit the outreach hospitals. So there is a long way to go. And a small story. There was a patient admitted after multiple trauma for traffic accident. And there was a fracture distal end of tibia fibula. And they realized that there is no pulse, those are SPDs. And I got a call saying that the specialty, because of no pulse, this should transfer to a vascular surgeon and transfer form also written already. But of course this patient's BP was dropping and there was a liver laceration. Why this is happening? Should not blame anybody. This is the system issue. We have to change the system. To change the system, we should teach the system principles first. So we are prepared to do it. If you don't have the team concept and multidisciplinary approach in this trauma care, even if it is primary care, as I said, we should take the decision. Sometimes this kind of decisions may come in. So, trauma is a heavy train, and you will get wet and you will get harmed. As the experts, as surgeons, anesthetists, consultants, even though we have our own umbrella, still we will get traumatized, we will get affected. So we'll get together. This looks like a house. We will open it to you. This house is NTMC. When you come, you will realize this is not just a house, this is a home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, Dr. Satish K. Gunasinghe, to address the gathering.
Thank you. Good evening. Professor Mohan Silva, Emeritus Professor of Surgery, University of Sri Lanka. Dr. Narendra Pinto, Senior Consultant, Orthopedic Surgeon. Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, Global Chair of the NTMC program. And Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, Director of the Sri Lankan NTMC program. Members of the faculty of the NTMC, ladies and gentlemen. NTMC is celebrating and reflecting back on its 50th, at the point of its 50th course, and it has come a long way. The precursor to the NTMC was the Atriums, which started in 2003, and NTMC started in 2009 by Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao. Then the president of the college was Dr. Narendra Pinto, and to reminisce, I was the secretary of the college in 2009 when the NTMC started in the month of September 2009. So as Kamal very comprehensively mentioned, we've had 50 NTMC courses, and up to today 2,376 doctors have been trained in trauma management, and also it has become a dynamic course looking at the current trends with changes in the syllabus, and also adding modules, especially for military personnel who are working as volunteers in UN missions, and it has transcended its boundaries in forming courses for nurses who are essential component of the course, the initial trauma care for nurses. About 735 nurses have been trained up to now under this scheme, so that's a great achievement. And also it's going further with the DMMT. So we are so proud of the NTMC program, which was initiated by Dr. Namdaelao and now led by Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya. So our ultimate objective is to achieve excellent trauma care and to have excellent outcomes of victims of trauma, whether road traffic accidents or otherwise. They also form an important cohort in this group. And while we are having these type of programs to doctors, nurses, and going beyond, I think as Kamal has very well done, he has audited the outcomes in the how people have changed. I think we have to further audit the trauma system in a random fashion as well, so that we can assess how things are going on and to have excellence. Whole purpose of the audit process is not to find fault with anyone, but to improve ourselves so that we can have discussions. I think that's the other element I think I would, as a college, I would like to do. And my predecessor has done a lot of work on this, and presidents even before that looking at different aspects of trauma, transfer of patients, pre-hospital care, the reception. A lot of aspects have been analyzed. I think we'll have to bring it to one group and once again consolidate. And other complementary courses also we can start. We are in operation, and all will go in concordance as a unified system. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of talk, but personally, as Kamal was reminiscing, all these people on the in the HUD table are very special to me. I was Professor Mohan Silva. I was brought into the college by Professor Mohan Silva to his council when he was the president in the year 2004, and I was entrusted with the editing of the Suture newsletter. Dr. Narendra Pinto I was his registrar in orthopedics. I think a lot of things we have reminisced together, and it was a pleasure working round the clock. Sometimes casualties we have four consecutive days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, but we enjoyed every moment of it working under Dr. Pinto. So it was a pleasure working with you, and I had the privilege of being his secretary as well in the college. And Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, I've known him for a long time. When we were visiting Anuradhapura on SR rotations to do war casualties, he was a wonderful host. He helped us in a big way, and even he hosted us for dinner at his residence. And for us, it was a great treat. I think I say myself and Ranjit Pereira, I can remember visiting your residence. So once again, I'm not going to take up your time. The college is behind the NTMC program, and for the augmentation, audit process, and also we are working on ministerial transfer processes. We'll have to change the health minute. The council is working on SHOs being retained, but it will make a major paradigm change in the thinking. Once again, we should be amenable and be subject to change. That is one thing that our systems are not very happy to change. Change is of paramount importance. Before I conclude, we must say, in the health sector, we are facing a very difficult time these days, as you are aware, but we are doing our best coordinating with the ministry and the other colleges, especially the College of Anesthesiologists and Intensivists, to remedy and minimize issues. But once again, it's a very difficult time for all of us, but I think we should surmount as a college together. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege now to welcome our guest of honor, Senior Consultant Orthopedic Surgeon, former President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, former President of the SARC Surgical Care Society, and one of the core members of the NTMC, and my trainer as well, Dr. Narendra Pinto.
Thank you very much. Chief guest this morning, this evening, Professor Mohan Silva, President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, Dr. Satish Gunasinghe, Global Chair of NTMC, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, Director of NTMC, Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, past presidents, members of the council, invited guests. It's a historic day for the NTMC and the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, as already described. And it's great to be among the friends who have the same interest and passion for trauma. You know, the birds of a feather. So that concept. I congratulate Ranjit and Kamal for this great achievement of hitting the preferred NTMC. When I hear about this Kamal's narration of how he was taught when he was a medical student, when he was cutting the class, now I admire to have blossomed into a very reliable, dependable, passionate surgeon who is well trained and well qualified, who loves to teach and treat trauma patients. Nowadays, I am a regular member of the Kamal's NTMC team. Now, it is his turn to check on me whether I wake up early enough to be at the meetings at 8 o'clock. So at 6:30 or so, he gives a call. But he does it very diplomatically. He wants to check whether, sir, did you have your morning breakfast milk tea? So that's it. And then again at about 7:30, he doesn't want to miss me, delaying at the thing. 7:30, he gives the directions, because directions are how to reach the venue, especially when we go out for this outreach program. At about 7:30, sir, you have to take this. In fact, at the last Kuliyapite meeting, so he gave this usual call around directing me to this. So I was heading towards somewhere else. Fortunately, I turned back and came on time. So these are sweet memories. All are aware why trauma is important. In the overview of the lecture of NTMC by the YATSIC, the World Body on Trauma, it states that trauma is an orthopedic disease by default. But being a senior orthopedic surgeon in this country, I am going to reveal to you a hidden but well-known secret, especially seniors like Mohan and Ranjit knows, that trauma is not so popular in my specialty, and probably even in the other specialties as well. The foremost reason for trauma being unpopular is that trauma can strike at any time. That's what I feel. At any time, and you can be called at any given time of the day or the night to treat a patient. It may be too challenging for some traditional surgeons who may find it difficult to work outside their comfort hours. Anyway, during our times, there have been many attempts at streamlining the trauma care in this country. I must mention about the Trauma Secretariat, 110 ambulance service created by the College of Anesthesiology and the College of Surgeons and the Colombo Municipal Council. This is prior to the Suicide program. The PTC program, the Primary Trauma Care program by the College of World Federation of Anesthesiologists, brought by the College of Anesthesiologists and the College of Surgeons. The Trauma Subcommittee of SLMA, the TRIN course of the College of Surgeons, which is a brainchild of Ranjit. So all these programs and committees, Dr. Illa was actively involved and led a major role to uplift the trauma care services in the country. And this grand ceremony is a fitting tribute to his dedicated services in trauma care. I am sure that Kamal will elaborate more on his achievements later in the proceeding. I am pleased to mention that there are various other programs on trauma in existence in different parts of the island at local levels. Kandy, Jaffna, Gaul and probably Batticlo. Lately, ATLS course was also started at the College of Surgeons. Furthermore, the College of Surgeons commenced a comprehensive trauma care program last year covering all aspects of trauma, including prevention, treatment, definitive care, rehabilitation and training, in which NTMC also played a big role, which created a resurgence of interest in trauma care in this country. At this stage, I wish to remind you all of the services of another surgeon, a great surgeon, who pioneered the trauma care at the national hospitals. as you know, that's the ultimate referral center of this country. Thereby he extended his services to the whole country. I remember him even during my medical student days, late 70s to until mid-90s. He was on call single-handedly for all vascular trauma emergencies at the hospital, day and night. So he was at the accident service at any given time when you are called. If he is not operating, he is there. He is none other than our great Professor A. Cherubin. I wish he is here. I can't see him now. So, who is a pioneer in many fields in surgery. So, with these tributes to the pioneers in trauma care in this country, I wish to conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now call upon the chief guest tonight, Emeritus Professor of Surgery of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and the former chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka and a mentor to many of us in surgery, Professor Mohan De Silva.
Good evening. President of the College, Dr. Satish Gunasinghe, our guest of honor, Dr. Narendra, the Global Chair of NTMC and the keynote speaker today, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, respected past presidents, members of the council, distinguished invitees, dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. As you already heard, today we are celebrating the successful completion of the 50th NTMC conducted by the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, which is obviously a very significant milestone in the history of our college. As you all know, trauma doesn't understand boundaries. The worst outcome may well be instantaneous death or long suffering. Suffering to the family may be worse, and the best management is prevention. In line with this thinking of prevention, the World Health Organization more than a decade ago changed its nomenclature for vehicle accidents, one of the most common cause of major trauma we see in civilian practice all over the world. Instead of the traditional description of RTA, road traffic accident, the WHO coined this word the road crash, because the word accident means that it is an act which is by definition not preventable. When I was a medical student, we were not trained to treat critical injury. Advanced trauma life support system was not heard of then. As it happens, great leaps in the progress of mankind have come from unique people with resilience. The personal tragedy of Dr. James Tyner, a traumatologist and orthopedic surgeon practicing in Lincoln, USA, whose experience following an unexpected crash landing of his light aircraft with his family, his wife and 4 children, to a cornfield in rural Nebraska in midwinter in 1976, as you all know, changed the entire approach of trauma care in this world. A man of action instead of words. The chaos he observed during the initial treatment his critically injured family received on that fateful day, during which his beloved wife passed away, in this rural healthcare facility in the early hours of the morning. He felt that no one should ever undergo that experience he and his family received in that night. So what he proposed and propagated was nothing new. The greatness of his project was in its simplicity. By putting an order to the chaos of things that he observed during that event, he proposed to create a process to standardize the treatment in terms of priorities and sequences. So what was his revolutionary proposal? In simple terms, that boils down to only two things. The first, the initial assessment. During my medical student time, that was actually history and examination. And resuscitation. In my medical student time, that was the treatment. His first proposal was that initial assessment and the resuscitation must begin simultaneously. That is the first proposal. And second is to recognize and treat the most life-threatening injury first, during that so-called golden hour of trauma, to save life and to prevent disastrous damage to the survivors. We all know, as traumatologists, that acute, complete airway obstruction is the quickest killer of the injured, and it will kill you in 3 minutes. You attend to that before you go to the second commonest cause of killer. That's how the atelier story. So these two words, the primary survey and the secondary survey, was coined and now has become keywords to enter what we now call the Universal Trauma Language. In 1979, the American College of Surgeons Committee on Trauma adopted this project. It took time for this new system to arrive in our small island nation. As I remember, the very first meeting of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka to propagate this new concept, ATLS, was during the presidency of Dr. Gamini Gunaki. I was secretary of the college at the time. The symposium was held at the Sri Jawadhanapura Teaching Hospital. The experience following this initial event stimulated the college further to initiate what was then referred to as the ATRIM course, that is Advanced Trauma Resuscitation and Initial Management course. Around 2003 and 2004, and Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, who was interested in, was appointed to manage this, and he took over. And in his keynote address, Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao, I'm sure, will touch upon the landmark moments in the evolution of trauma care training in our country. And I must really pay a personal tribute to him, because when someone is given a responsibility, I think to complete that in style with the data which we saw a few minutes ago in the Kamal's presentation, the number of surgeons, number of students, number of trainees, and the number of nurses. And obviously, in his life, this is the outcome. And I think it's a great tribute to someone who's dedicated his life to trauma care training in this country. Thank you, Ranjit. Most surgeons, in particular those of us who developed a passion in treating patients who are critically injured, may recollect many nostalgic memories, especially in our experience, in the war settings in the northern eastern theatres of war, and while serving in draining hospitals like Anuradhapura, Ampare, Trincomalee, Polonnaruwa, Batticaloa, and of course in the main centres in Colombo. While thanking the organizers for inviting me to be here, before I wind up, I thought I will tell you two such experiences to share with you the self-fulfillment of attending to the critical injured. That's the beauty of the time. I'm happy that my friend who had the same experience at Anuradhapura is just walking in. And these both incidents were at the Anuradhapura hospital, but at a time when I was a surgeon at Kuliapide Base Hospital. The first incident was during the height of the war, when I had to go to Anuradhapura unexpectedly, when the only surgeon who was at Anuradhapura at the time fell sick. So I went in the ambulance that night in the Puttalam road. As we all know, the Puttalam road is not the best road to travel at that time during those days, and reached the hospital at early hours of the morning, straight to theatre. This was the time multiple casualties were brought in from the front. Some of you, like Manhama, I think has gone through the same experience, I'm sure, and Ranjit, we all know what it was like then. I had to end up with this young soldier with a tense hemoperitonum, that is for non-medical belly full of blood, due to multiple gunshot injuries. While transfusing the 20th unit of blood, At about 3 a.m. in the morning, when I was struggling to control bleeding from the liver, the stomach, spleen and the transistor, my friend anesthetist said that, sir, if this patient goes home, both of us will go to heaven. Actually, patient went home. Unfortunately, my friend anesthetist passed away a few years after, and he must be in heaven also. I still remember that. The last story was on a Sinhala and Tamil New Year Day. Another day when Anuradhapura Hospital didn't have a surgery. Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao was the Director General of Health Services. I must divert from this, and I see Dudley here, Dr. General Dudley Pereira was in charge of the Army Medical Corps at the time. I think I saw him there. And those days we didn't have mobile phones. So when Kulayapitiya, the phone rings in the quarters, my wife gets really upset. When if the call is from Dudley, you know that Dudley is asking me whether I could go to Jaffna. So, you know, first call, second call, third call, my wife is, if it's coming from Dudley, he's not a very welcome call that. I saw him, so I thought I would mention this. Fortunately, she's not here, she's down in the floor. So Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao rang that day and asked me, Mohan has a problem, can we go to Anuradhapura? And I could help. So the day before, the previous day, the day before the New Year Day, I went to Anuradhapura. Now that day, the casual list went on till the next day. The whole night we were operating, and maybe I finished the list at about 7 or 8 in the morning. Operated the whole night because continuous casualties are coming. They are not big casualties, but you know, it was continuous, you know the feeling. So I could not go to the army ward for the ward round. It was late. That was the time I walked in, is late, about 11 o'clock in the morning. And then at the end of the ward, you remember the long army ward those days, and there was this young soldier. And the bed etiquette tells me that he had a popliteal injury in Jaffna about a week ago, and someone had done a popliteal graft there. And because of the transport problems at the time, you know, there were a lot of problems with flights, so he came late to Anuradhapura, and he came in the previous night, and maybe there was no one to look after him even towards the end there as well as here. When I went, I saw an obviously septic limb and a delirious patient. He was confused, he was delirious, high fever, and an obviously septic limb. And that limb was well beyond salvage. He needed an emergency guillotine amputation to save his life. And of course, he was not in a position to conceive. So immediately I was looking for relatives. That being the New Year Day, the laborer went to the gate and managed to get the relatives. They are from Kurunagala, and the family of 7 in the family. He was, I think, the youngest, and the eldest was a school teacher, all others are farmers. So school teacher was the only one who could understand this. I got them into a room. They haven't still seen the patient, and it was a very difficult one. And with the best, the village words I could ever imagine, I explained this, that he needs emergency abdominal amputation. It was not easy, and there was a pin drop silence. After about a minute, the eldest brother, school teacher, spoke. He said, "Sir, I will never open my mouth and tell you to cut my brother's leg, but I will worship and tell you to save his life." This depth of the story tells you the challenges of socio-emotional skills which surgeons, patients, but most importantly the relatives have to have when you handle that type of situation. So surgery, trauma surgery is not only the procedural skills and the confidence, there is a lot more to the socio-emotional skills, the communication with the relatives, and how the relatives could communicate with you when you are in such a difficult situation. So that's the beauty of it. So ladies and gentlemen, attending to critical injury is an amazingly self-fulfilling experience. That is what my feeling is. Of many trauma write-ups by world-famous, world-renowned trauma surgeons. As those days as a youngster I used to read all this. I wish to share with you one quote by Rafael Nadal, a well-known, famous trauma surgeon, which I most like. He said, I quote, "Whenever you encounter massive bleeding, the very first thing to remember is that it's not your blood." Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those inspiring words. May I now call upon Dr. Kamal Jayasuriya, the director of the NTMC Sri Lanka, to read the citation for our keynote address by Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao.
I'm going to write a story. Of course, read this story. It was very difficult to make it a short presentation, but I took the effort to do it. Dr. Ranjit Namdaelao. He is a senior consultant surgeon, and of course, you know, Global Chair, National Trauma Management course. A great teacher, a great leader. He's a national figure, and of course, he's an international figure. I would say he's natural, and of course, an art. Great husband, great father, gardener, singer. I hope my adjectives and adverbs are enough. Will make it short. A gentleman to his fingertips. Yes, sir. So he born